Uhuru, and welcome back to the 24-hour Reparations Tuesday Webathon hosted by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, an organization working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to win other white people to a stance of reparations and solidarity with African liberation and self-determination. And we have a goal today. This is a fundraising webathon for the Black Power Blueprint. So far, your listenership, everyone out there, has helped us raise $620, but we have a goal of reaching $2,000 today. And with your help, we know we can make that happen. My name is Jamie Simpson. I'm your host for this section of the Webathon. I'm a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I'm honored to be joined by my co-host, Jesse Neville, who is a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And we are both very honored to be here tonight, joined by the leaders of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement founder and leader, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and Deputy Chair Onazene Yeshitela. Welcome in Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades. So it is such an extreme honor to have both of you here, the visionary leader of the Black Power Blueprint, Deputy Chair Onazene Yeshitela, and the visionary leader of the African People's Socialist Party from its inception, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. The impact that both of you have had on the world is difficult to describe in a few words. So let's dive into some questions. We want to begin with a question for you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Why did you choose to call this program the Black Power Blueprint? And how is this project different from anything else out there?
Well, I think that many people, especially within the African liberation movement itself, underestimate the significance of self-reliance, economic self-reliance to the actual freedom of our people. And we have a situation where freedom is sort of like an abstract call. We want to be free, we want freedom. But we define in the party the conditions of African people here and around the world as colonialism. It is foreign, it's a hostile, alien, foreign domination, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, as you see in different places in Africa where imperialists control the economy, and by controlling the economy, they control the population. And the struggle against colonialism ultimately is a struggle for the liberation of the productive forces of a society. People need to be able to feed, clothe, and house themselves. And to do that, they need to have access to land, to tools, equipment, and to people with an understanding of how to produce. That's what the struggle is. I mean, that's what it's about. And we talk about fighting against colonialism, fighting for self-determination. Those are political articulations of a need, a requirement for any people to have control over an economy, the ability to feed, clothe, and house itself. And so it's a really important introduction because what it does is remind people that this struggle is about achievement of real power, and you can't have real power, can be no self-determination without economic self-reliance in the final analysis. And so we say that this is the blueprint for black power. We want power, and not just some abstract concept of power, but the actual ability to be able to feed, clothe, and house ourselves, to guarantee that our children, our people will have a future. And so we see this incredibly significant project that was initiated under the leadership of Comrade Deputy Chairwoman Onazene Yeshitela as a perfect prototype for the achievement of this black power. So we say that this is a blueprint, black power blueprint, and it is a prototype. And so I think that's sort of how it happened. Of course, Deputy Chair Owners and Aisha Teller played, a real important role in terms of designating it Black Power Blueprint as well. So, yeah, I think that's, from my perspective, that helps to sum up how we came to this recognition.
Uhuru, pardon me, thank you so
May
much.
I-
Oh, yes, please.
We preparing for the first plenary of the African People's Socialist Party 7th Congress. And the theme slogan of that plenary is Vanguard Up, which can be heard two ways. One, as a verb, Vanguard Up, which is it's a statement to be in a certain way, to do a certain thing, and it can be understood as vanguard, the noun, up, the verb, to take a stand. And we, and it also says it is the unity of theory and practice. And we live in a situation today subsequent to the military defeat of the Black Revolution of the 1960s, where that was something that we came to understand, many different people and organizations came to understand that there has to be some unity of theory and practice. It's not good enough just to say something, but we have to, be able to do it, to implement, to carry it out and what have you. And so when we talk about freedom, it's not just an abstract question for us. We talk about power. I mean, people talk about power. You see that all the time. You see, and there are people who are watching this now who see it and sometimes who do it themselves and they go, black power, black power. But what the hell does that mean? If it's not something that contributes to an actual acquisition of power, and power is not making somebody like you, power gives you the ability for somebody liking you not to be a determining factor in what your relationship is going to be to them or to the world. That we have ability ourselves to do that. I remember a long time ago when I was growing up, and there used to be this thing that was said by white liberals. It was a real test for whether somebody was a really good liberal or not, is would you bring an African home to dinner? That was a presumptuous thing. In the first place, if you're cooking, I don't want to come, for one thing. But, it's just really presumptuous. I mean, what the hell makes you think that that's what I'm living? Oh, boy, I got born, so a white guy could ask me for dinner. There's a kind of politic that's been out there that does not assume that African people would be in charge of our own affairs, could be and should be in charge of our own affairs. And so this Black Power Blueprint is really important as a designation for what it is that we're doing. And it also is something that takes, again, this whole abstraction out of what we're about. I mean, because, people, all people, even the people who are participating in this webinar from wherever they're located, can unite with this project that contributes to self-determination, self-reliance. It's not even a vote on liking somebody. It's if people who are opposed to what the system is doing, they opposed to Trump, and they want to, isolate Trump as this individual, and without looking at the whole system, because one would suggest that the world was wonderful and America was wonderful and its treatment of peoples in this country and around the world was great until the election of Trump. And of course, that's nonsense. But what's good about Trump is that he brings out in bold relief for anybody who wants to see the very nature of the social system itself. And the Black Power Blueprint gives everybody who wants an opportunity to do so an ability to unite in opposition to Trumpism and the social system that gives rise to Trump and everything he believes in. And the colonization of African people is real. And people can unite against that by supporting the Black Power Blueprint Project. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you so much for that, Chairman Amalia Shatella. As the founder and leader of the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement, you have put forward this concept of the struggle for dual power since the 1970s. Could you tell our listeners and tell us what dual power is in your understanding, and how does it explain the current programs and revolutionary character of the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis?
Dual power is really a transitional place where the struggle is. I mean, the reality is that, generally speaking, the European colonizer has all the power, and Africans have no power to speak of. And that's not just true in this country, by the way. That's true, you know, even all over Africa, where we have there are tremendous resources that should benefit African people. It's not the case. Somebody else controls that. They have the power. You know, there's a lot of discussion going on in this country about immigrants and how difficult it is for different people to come into the United States. But it's not difficult for white people to go any place in Africa. Sometimes don't even have to have visas. Just show up at the damn border, and that's how that works. But most of us don't have power. So we say dual power, not because we want dual power, but we say the acquisition of power is fundamental. And so we see the struggle for dual power that for a short period of time can coexist with the colonial power as a stepping stone toward the capture of all the power over our own lives. And dual power, it is our capacity to begin to construct freedom even as we live under colonial domination. To be able to construct an anti-colonial program even as we live under colonial domination. We have to be conscious of that as revolutionaries, but the peoples of the world and Africans have to be conscious of this too. And again, this takes this abstraction out of what it is that we're fighting for, not for somebody to like us, but for having the ability to control our own destiny, which means that we have to have the ability to feed, clothe, and house ourselves. And our politics reflects that. And the concept of dual power is all about that. So what is the strategy? How do we win freedom? And we've seen various examples of peoples around the world who've fought for their freedom. And we're saying that the road to freedom is something that you start constructing now. You don't wait until there's an assumed collapse of the existing colonial social system. In fact, it is the ongoing struggle of peoples taking back their resources from a parasite, which is imperialism, that helps to undermine the social system itself. Again, people who want to really undermine the social system, I mean, you can come up with your militant chants and all of that, and I love militant chants, and block the highways, and that can be cool too, but a real practical approach to it is the actual accumulation of power and supporting the efforts of the colonized to have their own power. That's what we just saw in Bolivia when the U.S. government initiated that coup there to take the power from the people. That's what's happening in Venezuela, the starve the people so the people can't have their own power. They're saying that the power of the people cannot coexist with the power of imperialism. And we are a part of a project that recognizes that as well. Our objective is not to create a situation where there's permanent dual power. That won't work. Our objective is to achieve absolute, total control of our own lives. And so the dual power project is a strategy toward that end. Yeah.
Uhuru. Yeah. Chairman Amalia Shatella, thank you so much for that incredible overview of the role that the Black Power Blueprint plays in the freedom and liberation of African people and colonized people the world over. If you were moved by that, I encourage you to help us reach our goal. You can go to blackpowerblueprint.org and contribute now and find out more about this project. See it in color. See the pictures and the videos, and many of them have been put together by Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshatella. And we'd like to move to your end of the work now. First of all, as the coordinator of the Black Power Blueprint project overall, Could you tell us about your role in the African People's Education and Defense Fund, and what is the mission of that organization?
Uhuru, first of all, I want to just say how exciting this their telethon has been so far. I've seen most of it, and I'm very, very impressed that we put this together in such a short time to make it happen. And I just want to thank everybody that's involved in making that happen, APSC and USM, for having this telethon for us. I am the president of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. The African People's Education and Defense Fund was created in 1994 by Chairman Omali Shatella, and the mission is to defend the civil and human rights of the African community and create the programs that speaks to the disparities in healthcare, education, and economic development. So every institution that we've created speaks to those to that mission.
Excellent, excellent. Uhuru. So recently, yes, Jesse, please jump in.
Just pass the mic. Thank you. I just want to join in appreciating Chairman and Deputy Chair for being on this. And in so many ways, this is the panel that this whole day has been leading up to. We've seen all the different fronts of the Uhuru movement, and it all comes under the leadership of the party, Chairman Omali Shatella, and so much of the economic work that we've seen. The furniture stores, the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, comes under the direct leadership of Deputy Chair Onizanea Shatella. So I just really want to salute and say what an amazing honor it is to have you both on this telethon, this historic 24-hour Reparations Tuesday telethon, and just really appreciate you for being here. And I also wanted to let everybody know that we do have people watching online, and we want to thank you, Elizabeth Ryan, for putting in $15, and Penny Hess. And Chairwoman Penny Hess, who has been on the air quite a bit today, who put in $100. So, Uhuru to Chairwoman Penny. That means we've raised $735, and we have $1,265 to go before we unlock our matching fund. So once we get to that 2,000 point, it immediately becomes 4,000. So every dollar you donate between now and reaching that 2,000 is actually $2. So we have $1,265 left to go, and it goes immediately to the work of the Black Power Blueprint. We heard earlier that while we were doing this telethon, they were broadcasting from the Uhuru House in St. Louis. Across the street, Paradigm Builders is putting up fencing. It's just incredible, how fast this project is moving. So I wanted to, if I could ask the next question, Jamie.
Please.
May I?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Here you go.
I also want to say that throughout I've been hearing about the birthday funds that are birthday fundraisers that are happening on Facebook, and I know this year, Chairman and I are born on the same day, October 9th, and this year we didn't get an opportunity to do a fundraiser this year. So we want to start off by saying that we want to donate $500.
Whoa!
As part of our birthday fund that we didn't get a chance to do, on October 9th. So, yes, so we want to contribute $500 to this time.
All right.
Uhuru.
Incredible.
What I wanted to do is to extend the statement of appreciation by Comrade Deputy Chair Onizanea Shatella to the African People's Solidarity Committee and Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And I want to do that because it really is an expression of the party's work. And I think about the 7th Congress of our party that just happened in October. And there were some hiccups going in and coming out of that party, out of that Congress, contradictions. And that's one of the great things about a Congress. It sets up a process wherein you flush out all kinds of contradictions, rotten stuff that might be in there in order to move forward. That's necessary. And that happened. But you look at what's happened since that Congress. It's been just a little over a year since that Congress, and the tremendous amount of work that we have done. When I say we, I'm talking about the party and all of its organizations, and especially I'm talking about the APSC and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I mean, we just come out of an incredible campaign here in the city of St. Petersburg, where we actually passed out thousands and thousands of pieces of literature and knocked on thousands of doors and called and talked to thousands of people about reparations and about in opposition to gentrification. I don't know any other organization that has done this kind of stuff, that is doing this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And, the party has led around this question of reparations as quiet as it's kept. And we have really assumed the leadership of this struggle, this question, especially since 1981, when we passed a resolution at our first Congress saying that that's what we were going to be doing. We're going to be pushing the reparations demand. And then in 1982, we held the first ever World Tribunal on Reparations for African people in this country. And for the first time in history, actually quantified the amount of value that was stolen from African people through labor alone. And now what is happening is, while a lot of people are talking about reparations, it's become fashionable now. But when we started out doing this work, we were considered a lunatic fringe, even talking about revolution. White liberals, white communists said, this is crazy. You can't support that. I remember in 1976 when we waged a struggle in Philadelphia and involved in a process to build what was considered a bicentennial without colonies, and we were fighting for the kinds of demands that were going to be pursued, and we said reparations, and white communists and liberals and what have you, you can't do that. That's a lunatic fringe. This is what our friends were telling us, and then you look now, and USM, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, exists in more than 130 cities in the United States, more than 30 states in the United States, and everywhere USM is located, the reparations demand is somehow being articulated. In every institutions that we have, the reparations demand is somehow being articulated. We've done something with the whole reparations demand that is extraordinary, because for the longest period of time, the reparations work was perceived as black work, that just black people who were involved in the demand for reparations, and this was what we did, without any recognition that the reparations demand has to be really a revolutionary project, a revolutionary demand. It recognizes something wrong with a social system that is parasitic, and that it is possible to win Europeans and North Americans to solidarity with the demand for reparations, to actually do the work, and to work in white communities and do, where reparations would not normally be discussed. I mean, if there's somebody named Elizabeth Warren who's talking about reparations today, if there are politicians, or Kamala, is her name Kamala Harris?
She dropped out.
I know she dropped out. Is talking about reparations today, because Kamala. Yeah. And it is precisely because of the groundbreaking work we have done. And many people who look at reparations work have been able to see like something that might be coming from the African community, but haven't been able to see it coming from all these other places in the North American community itself, before an Elizabeth Warren and before a Kamala Harris, neither of whom speaks to and can speak to the question of ending colonial domination of African people and the social system responsible for that itself. And this work that's done by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is extraordinary work. I mean, it is extraordinary. And there are people who will not believe it. I mean, who can't, some of them don't see it, don't know that it's happening, but would not believe this work that is occurring now. Because we've created a situation where people are debating this question across the breakfast and dinner tables at home, not because of anything that Warren or somebody else did or Sanders didn't do, but because of the work that's come from this party and from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and the African People's Solidarity Committee. And when we organized the African People's Solidarity Committee, we ran into a buzzsaw of opposition, not just from black nationalists, but from white leftist communists. One communist organization said something to the effect that it won't work because white people won't work against their own interests, and which is to assume that working under the leadership of African people somehow conflicts with the interests. This is from a communist, conflicts with the interests of white people. A communist who can say that the struggle should be happening under the leadership of what they call the working class, on the one hand, cannot see that leadership coming from African people. And just a whole bunch of slander. We were just this minority force, who people could say you were guilt tripping white people and stuff like that. And on one occasion, APSC was white lesbians working under the leadership of black men. I still haven't got that. Somebody's going to have to hip me to that, because I believe that somebody in the Solidarity Movement knows what that implies. I don't quite get it, but I knew it was supposed to be insulting. But today, the Solidarity Movement is the only dynamic, growing movement in the white community that considers itself some kind of left or communist or socialist movement. I mean, look at it. And where we started from. Look at, where is the Communist Party USA? Where are all of these other so-called leftists who are supposed to be such a critical factor? You can't see them, but you can see the growth, the dynamic growth and participation by the Solidarity Movement. And I just wanted to recognize that. I appreciate Comrade Deputy Chair for opening it up to give me an opportunity to say that. But just from the 7th Congress in October, I mean, in October, I think 17th, I think we had in Philadelphia, in St. Louis, I think we had a day. Was it a day in reparations at the new Uhuru House? I mean, does it say something like 5 days following the Congress, the 7th Congress? We were doing a reparations event in St. Louis. So it's really powerful, and I just want to express my appreciation for that reality and for your significance as historical forces. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Really unite with all of that, and just appreciate that so much. I think I'm good, actually.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to just ask one quick question, if I may. So I wanted to ask about St. Louis, and this is a question for both of you, Chairman and Deputy Chair. You have each of you spent quite a bit of time in St. Louis, and I want to talk about how that started and how things have developed to the point they're at now, a story in which both of you play a huge role. So we could start with you, Chairman. You went into St. Louis in 2014. Could you talk about that and what happened when you got there?
Yeah, I want to talk about that because the founding of our party in 1972 was a conscious part of a process to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. We weren't trying to reinvent something. We weren't off on a thing to find a coalition or to get religion or something like that. There was a revolutionary movement that shook the very foundation of the earth, and we were a part of it. That is to say, the Black Revolution in this country was part of it. It was happening in Vietnam. It was happening in Cuba had opened up the door, and various other places around the world. It was right. The whole world was that, and so that revolutionary movement was crushed. Assassinations abounded. Che was assassinated after he was captured and wounded, and Lumumba was assassinated, and Nkrumah was overthrown and assassinated, and all around the world we saw this is happening. And the consequence of that was that a lot of people who proclaimed themselves previously as revolutionaries found something else to do, and moderated their position, their politics, and what have you. And we've been working to try and rebuild this revolutionary movement. And what happened was we've seen murders and assassinations here, right here in the city of St. Petersburg in 1996, where the United States military forces in the form of in the front lines of that being the St. Petersburg Police Department and 300 members of other armed domestic occupation forces from neighboring cities in the state of Florida ended up attacking this building where we are having this conference right now, and used all the tear gas in the city of St. Petersburg with the intention of wiping out the party. And the people in this community rose up and fought them. They first starting off as hand-to-hand combat and used every other method that was available, including guns, and actually brought a helicopter down right outside this building. So we've seen that kind of stuff happening. And we've seen, we've seen people go out in demonstrations after other situations. There was no internet then. So even though some word got out, there was no way you could maintain certain kinds of connections with the people. We had to use, the bourgeois media primarily played the role in helping people understand what they did about this. And then this thing, we've seen, Trayvon Martin. We've seen, I don't know how many people killed in demonstrations. And then con artists and hustlers and opportunists like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton would rush in. I mean, who have gained stature only because King was assassinated. If there was no assassinated King, for Jackson to run into Chicago with what was supposed to be King's blood on his shirt, which was a lie, and do a TV thing, there would be no Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson, is there because King was killed. Sharpton because King was killed. And so these guys now elevated by the bourgeoisie as spokespersons for our people. So time something happened, they would airlift these guys in, and these guys were professional militant prayer mongers who would lead a demonstration and get everybody sweaty and exhausted with a militant prayer. And that was it. And they would do that. And they would hold that kind of process that would go on sometimes for a long period of time. People were exhausted. People got even tired of going to demonstrations. And then what we saw was in St. Louis, Ferguson. We know where Ferguson was. And when this 18-year-old young man was murdered by the police department there and left to rot for 4.5 hours in 100-degree plus weather on asphalt, and then the people rose up with the cry, "Kill the police." And then Jackson and others began flying in. A whole host of people flew into Ferguson, and then the party said, you got to go in. And so we had to find out where was Ferguson, who was Ferguson, right? And then we discovered that we did have the Burning Spear newspaper had a subscriber there. And we contacted this comrade, and she facilitated our ability to come in, but we were there because something different happened there. Because the people were not singing, "We shall overcome," and let's have a prayer session. These were young people, many of them, who faced this hassle with the police every day. If the cops are not killing them like Mike Brown, they're humiliating them, on your knees, just horrible stuff. And so the response from these young people was kill the police. And this guy's laid there on the asphalt for 4.5 hours. And this was before they could get Jackson and the rest of them in place. And so this is what demanded that I had to go in. And it was extraordinary. And getting there, and on the streets, because that's where I went. I went straight to where it was, and on the streets and engaging on the streets. If it was the ability to stand up on a soapbox and talk, I talked to the people. Yes. And this even attracted the bourgeois media. What I was saying. I think something from ABC or something like that went viral. Thing that we were talking about, and. And the thing that was it was extraordinary. But yeah, I think you wanted to go ahead and have some comments about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the chairman, I went in. He was organizing on the streets. he called a meeting between MPDM and my office, and he said that we needed to start looking for an Uhuru house in St. Louis. So I flew out to meet with the Conrads there, and they had already organized like a tour, you know. They had got a realtor, you know, and actually, the first property that we went to was 4101 West Florissant.
Really?
Yes, that was the very, very first property that we went to, and I loved it. You know, but we wanted to like look around and see, you know, because there was so many abandoned buildings there, and also a lot of opportunity for us to, you know, really pick from what we really wanted to choose. And so we ended up going on the south side, you know, as well as the north side. So we came back to 4101 West Florissant, and for some reason, the realtor was not responding to my calls. And Chachara Masimba, he, you know, just started looking for other places after I left. So I got a call from him probably 2 months later. He said, look, the price of this building has dropped. So I tried calling the realtor again, and they answered the phone. So we started initiating the process of, you know, purchasing the Uhuru house at 4101 West Florissant. We closed on that property, I think it was June of 2017. And it was interesting because, as everybody know, where it's located is right in the heart of the African community, and people in that community were actually living in that building. So when we purchased the building,
Homeless people.
yes, homeless people were living there. When we purchased the building, you know, we kept getting broken into because people, you know, they didn't understand, you know, who we were and, you know, our goals and objectives for building in that community. But they soon learned that we wasn't there just to, you know, as predators. We were there to actually build economic self-reliant institutions there for the entire community. So, and we won them, you know, to really embrace who we were. And now, you know, that community really embraces the Black Power Blueprint, you know, the Uhuru House, you know. And I remember too that there had been a lot of fires being set, you know, on West Florissant in different buildings. And I happened to be back in St. Petersburg, and we got a call saying that they thought that it was the Uhuru house that was on fire. So they was calling us to let us know. So, you know, we have the total embrace of that community, because people see exactly why we're there. We're not there to take, we're there to build, you know, genuine economic development for the African community. So, Uhuru.
Uhuru.
I remember actually that day in June of 2017, I wasn't in St. Louis, but we were here in St. Pete. Akile probably remembers too. We were having a campaign meeting, and the chairman walked in and announced it. And it was a huge, you know, we were all very excited, started cheering and everything. And then right after the election, Hurricane Irma came to town. So we all went to St. Louis, and this was before the Uhuru House was totally transformed. And so I actually fell through the floor of that building at one point. It wasn't my fault.
The second floor or the first
floor? my foot kind of fell through for a second, but that wouldn't happen now. It looks amazing. I've been there. We've had our convention there. You know, it was a great honor to host it there twice actually, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that transformation, because it happened very, very fast. It was like less than a year that it went from being a building that someone would actually fall through the floor to being a state-of-the-art, you know, community center, event space, and just an amazing venue. So.
Well, one of the things that happened too was that when I got there, I was supposed to be there for a week. You know, I was supposed to purchase the building and come back to St. Pete. But what I recognized was that I really needed to be on the ground there to really start this project, to really, you know, forge this vision that the chairman had with the Black Power Blueprint, and also to gain the confidence of the people in the community that we wasn't just there, as predators, but we were there to actually build something. So I actually lived with 4 Feet, one of the comrades in PDUM. I was supposed to be at her house for a week. I ended up being at her house for 3 months, and then I actually brought her a property, for us to stay in, because if you're anywhere in St. Louis and you're renting, you could buy a house for what you're renting for. So we actually brought a house there, and we started to put down our roots, because I knew that I couldn't leave there at that moment. So I called the chairman. I called the chairman up. I say, look, I really feel that I needed to stay here to, really get this project going. Little did I know that I was going to be there for an entirely 2 years, and beyond, to really take on this work. But we started working on the Uhuru House. I think it started really in August of that year of 2017, and we actually signed a contract. I think it was with
Convention.
with the convention of USM, and we also, and the Blackest Bike was the first organization to hold an event at the Uhuru House. So we had a deadline that we had to meet. So that was in 10 months that we had to have, the Uhuru House completed.
Right.
And I don't know how we did it, but we actually, got everything in place. We, interviewed contractors, electricians, plumbers, everything that we needed in that community. People were actually really enthusiastic about helping us, so we just all came together and just made it happen. People from the southern region came down, a whole group of people came down to help paint, to help with the clearing out of the second floor and the third floor. I mean, people came from the northern region. Everybody just, band together and really set their footprint on St. Louis to help make it happen. Uhuru.
All right, well, Jamie, I'm going to throw it back over to you as the co-host. Before I do, I have a couple little announcements. This has been an extremely powerful interview, and I really think that the chairman and deputy chair raised the bar with that donation. I mean, I want to challenge people to match that.
Yes.
If you're out there. And we have raised, right up to this point, $1,270 today. So
Good.
cool. We're getting closer.
7:30 away, right? We have to
7:30
work.
away. Let's do it in this
Yes.
in this segment.
Yes,
Yeah.
come on, comrades.
Yeah.
We have $730 to go. This is a very important telethon that we're doing. 24 hours these comrades have been working, and still got, how many hours to go? I'm not good with math. 12 more hours to go. So they're going to be here all night, giving you all kind of political education. All the comrades coming in to be interviewed for this process. We need $730 to make this happen. When we get that $730, we'll have $2,000, and then we'll have $4,000, because there'll be a matching fund. So we are asking everybody, no donation is too little. Let's get this going. Let's raise the $730 in this segment. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
We had a hand over here, actually.
I'll do 30.
All right,
Yeah.
Kyle Weiss, engineer extraordinaire.
That brings us to 700 left to raise, and I want to thank Ngone Aw, who put in $10, Director Akile Anai, who put in 20,
Ooh.
Casey Mackey, who put in $5, Uhuru Casey.
Uhuru, Casey.
So we need to raise $700 more, and also shortly we'll be able to announce how much everybody has raised through the Facebook fundraisers that are going on. There are dozens of people, including many people who are in this room, who have active Facebook fundraisers going on for Reparations Tuesday. So that's another way that we're raising resources today. But we want to bring in the rest of the 700, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jamie.
And we still want to give a shout out to the comrades in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God.
We have Comrade Tachara,
Yes.
President Columbai, Nzei, Grady Brown, Penny Hess, Chairwoman Penny Hess, Kitty Riley, my
Yes.
project director.
Kumba.
Yes, our project director for the Black Power Blueprint, Uhuru Kitty, Kumba. Who else, Chairman? Malika Alexander, Abdul Alexander, Uhuru comrades, we will see you on the ground in St. Louis really, really soon. Uhuru.
And I want to shout out John Harrison, who put in $70.
Uhuru.
That is so impressive. Please keep it coming. We're so honored to have the generosity exemplified by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela. And I want to echo what Chair Jesse had said about what a deep honor it is to have both of you here with us on the air. This is indeed the apex of our 24-hour webathon, to have the founder of African internationalism here and the visionary leader of the Black Power Blueprint Project, which we're just, what is it? What was the number that we're looking for to reach our goal? Is it just
$630.
$630 away? So, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, while we have you here, we wanted to ask you, you've said before of the Black Power Blueprint Project that it is not a charity project. And being this Giving Tuesday, which is a day entirely about charity, could you say more about that?
Uhuru. First of all, what I'd like to do is to send a shout out to the comrades in occupied Tanzania, commonly known as South Africa, because they are currently developing a plan of action for economic development work. And I just think that the Black Power Blueprint is a template that's going to be really important for what these comrades are doing. And we exist in about 6 of the 9 provinces in South Africa, actively doing work, young, dynamic comrades. And so I just want to send a shout out to them, to President Tafari, to the Secretary General, Comrade Asa, and to the others who are just doing incredible work. And also we have a new president of the NPDUM in South Africa as well. So I just think it's really important. And I'm hoping that you comrades, are getting some benefit from what it is that we're talking about. Well, we're going to be talking more in terms of developing the plan of action for the economic work that's going to happen there. And that's a critical place for it to happen. So, and I say that and also is to remind us that we are internationalists, we're African internationalists, and what we do here, it has implications for the African revolution all over the world. So we were talking about why the Black Power Blueprint is not a charity. And we talked about how Giving Tuesday is normally associated with charities, and this is a time when people are encouraged to give to their charities. And charity, people are going to give to us because they feel charitable. And that's something people will do, but charity is usually something that's done more for the one who's giving than the one who's receiving. It can let you feel pretty good about yourself. You've done something, and I've seen people do, in the name of charity, all kinds of horrible things, like in Africa and Haiti, go and take African babies because they're going to be helpful and give the babies an opportunity to grow, and that's charitable as hell. But the problem with all of that is that the children don't have an ability and a right to grow up in Africa and in Haiti where they are. And to go and to exercise your charitable instincts by taking our children, it may make you feel good, but it contributes to the very problem that we have to overcome. And Black Power Blueprint is not a charitable exercise. It's an offer, it's a call to everybody who hates what you see, who hates the fact that you can live in this country, first of all, which is nothing but a settler colony, in the sense that the indigenous people who were the traditional custodians of this land are locked in concentration camps called Indian reservations with the lifespan in the 40s in some instances. And we're talking about how you must hate that. You must hate the fact that in this country there's a situation where, like was mentioned in Boston, where the average income or wealth of a white family is 30 some odd thousand times greater than the average wealth of an African. And there's no amount of nonsense and fantasy that that is offered up as some kind of scientific explanations about the ineptitude of African people that can explain that extraordinary difference. And so there must be, those of you out there who hate that and who want to unite with a real effort to change this relationship. Because, and some people I know have been upset because we found that white people are extraordinarily thin-skinned, and they call it sensitive often. I mean, it's like we invented nigger and, and slope heads and wetbacks and all those other terms. But white people are so thin-skinned, and somehow to say that our objective is not to win, favor, but solidarity. Genuine solidarity. That's what Black Power Blueprint is calling for. That we want to change this relationship. We are going to change this relationship that we have to the social system, to this government, to this economy. And that should not be shocking because peoples around the world are doing that every day. That's what you see. That's why there's unending war that's going on in this world today. That's why the U.S. can't stop fighting and killing and sanctioning people, because people are determined to take the resources and use them for their own benefit. And you have to have the ability to unite with that. And that's what's being called on. So we're not asking for charity, we're asking for solidarity. And to unite with the aspirations of Africans, which are no different from the aspirations that you have for yourself, for your own children, for your own family, for your own future. Unite with the aspirations of Africans whose aspirations cannot be realized because some other entity has expropriated for its own benefit our capacity for self-determination, self-reliance. So we say it's not charity. Solidarity is what we're looking for. Reparations is incredible, I believe, cleansing kind of process that of great political significance that North Americans can participate in. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I want to unite with that, Chairman, and others out there are watching who also unite with that, like Maureen Wagner, who put in $100 of solidarity, not charity. So that means we have 480 left to raise.
I know Maureen is sick. She's been down with the flu. I just want to wish you well, comrade.
Yes,
hope you get back
feel better
really soon.
Uhuru, Comrade Maureen.
Yes.
Uhuru. And we wanted, if we still have time, to
Yes, go
ask
ahead,
a
Jim.
few questions of Deputy Chair Ona Zane. Thank you, Chairman. Currently, there's an amazing project underway across the street from the Black Power Blueprint. And we wanted to know if you could tell us a bit about that, what's happening right now, what are some of the plans coming up for the outdoor event space? My mistake. It's an umbrella project that can seem, every aspect of it becomes like an institution. So what are some of the upcoming projects happening under the Black Power Blueprint and the APEDF? What are they working on?
Well, right now across the street in St. Louis, actually I was talking to some comrades today. We're actually putting up the fence. It's going to be our One Africa, One Nation marketplace, and it's going to be a beautiful outdoor venue where we can actually have the marketplace in the daytime and as well as at night. We've built in electricity, and we're going to have beautiful lighting. We have built a 7-foot stage. It's going to be really, really beautiful. It's also going to serve as a community garden, the Gary Brooks Community Garden. Mr. Brooks is one of the persons that when I arrived in St. Louis, he lives like right there next to the lot. And he was one of the persons that really helped us facilitate getting the building secured. He let us use his restroom, his electricity. He was just always there because he wanted to see a change in his community. And to be honest with you, he didn't think that it would happen in his lifetime. And just to see that in less than 2 years of us being there, the transformation that we've had with the Uhuru House and now the outdoor venue that we're gonna have. So it's gonna be beautiful. And I know that we've been tracking this step by step. So if you want to go to blackpowerblueprint.org and look on our website, you will see like the start of everything from the Uhuru House to the One Africa, One Nation Marketplace to the community garden. It's all there for you to see. It's just magnificent.
Wow.
May I speak to that as well?
Please, Chairman.
Comment, Deputy Chair. I think sometimes she understates the significance of the work that she has been responsible for. But that project across the street, we're talking about bringing One Africa, One Nation market there and a venue space. You really have to be able to visualize what North St. Louis has been like.
Yes.
And it was desolate, like it had been bombed out and what have you, which was one of the things that made, for me, the 4101 West Florissant Uhuru House such an important place. It's right on the corner, and West Florissant is a main thoroughfare that runs throughout St. Louis and into Ferguson and various other places in that area. But it's called a food desert. People don't have work, and the same city government that pursues assaults all the time on our community and slanders the community because of the consequences of not being able to have any kind of economic activity there, just gave $130 million to a project by the federal government to install a national global spatial intelligence entity there. This is an organization, one of the most secretive intelligence organizations in this country. That if there's any ship, any place, or phone, or computer, etc., these guys are on it. They are the ones who direct drones. They have satellites that direct missiles that's killing people in Yemen and other places like that. So she can give them $130 million of city money, which means that part of that money comes from the African community as well. But the African community cannot benefit from it, has nothing. And so to put this there, and then to make it possible for Africans to vend there, to make some money vending there, and to also make it possible for people to come and shop there, right in their own community, it is profound. And the transformation, when we raised, for example, on a 50-foot flagpole, on this lot that we're talking about where the One Africa, One Nation marketplace is going up, and then put atop that flagpole the red, black, and green, 15 by 25-foot red, black, and green flag. It literally stopped traffic. And Africans would stop, and they would bring their children, they'd take pictures of it. This is the transformation that nobody thought could happen in North St. Louis. This is what the party has done. This is what Black Power Blueprint has done. And so people, it changes the opinion of our people about themselves. It gives the people an ability to actually conceive of a different kind of future, the ability to be self-reliant. And that's what's so critically significant about that. That's just touching on it. But it's really important because the whole area is changing now as a consequence. Even some politicians are sticking up lots now to claim that they're opening up community gardens and stuff like that. And it's crazy, but they have to do it.
Yes.
Because they've been able to function in this sort of political vacuum. And so there was no standards by which they could be measured. Now, who they are and what they do is measured by the fact we've got this 10,000 square foot building there that's been transformed without a single help from the city government. Sidewalks still not paved because the city government won't do that, etc. And the people see this stuff happening. And they see that they've got a person who's supposed to be all the person there and all the persons throughout. And they're not making this kind of stuff happen, but the people can make it happen. And that's what's occurring now. And I think this is really powerful in terms of how the people see the ability to for transforming our own reality and not having to rely on politicians, the government, that kind of thing. And it gives us an ability to establish alliances and relationships with people and groups outside of our community on our own terms. Because if you're going to support somebody for self-determination, you don't come in and tell them how to be self-determination. That liquidates the whole concept, right? So we set the terms for that.
Can I just say, yes.
Yeah.
Also, on that very lot, tomorrow, we have to go down to the city to speak before the board, because they still haven't given us the actual permit to do all the things that we're doing on the property. So we've gotten a petition together, and we've gotten with people in the community to sign that petition, and also we've gotten where people, different businesses said that they will allow us to park, because the situation is they want us to have so many parking spaces for that, for that area, which, hardly nobody, is there anyway, but they want to give us a hard time. So we have to go before the board tomorrow. So we're taking a group of people from St. Louis down to City Hall with us tomorrow, and we have our petition where we had different people in the community sign that they approve of this project and they want to see it happen on the north side of St. Louis. So yeah, so it's always something, they always knocking on our doors saying that we're violating this or violating that, but we win every time, and we'll win this tomorrow as well.
Uhuru. Jesse.
Yes, I've just been blown away by this interview. It's been really incredible, and I'm not the only one, because people are watching and people are contributing. So I'd like to give you some exciting updates and give some special shout outs as well. I want to shout out, I got to scroll all the way back up here. Okay, Faux Feet put in $50. Uhuru. So, and we heard about Faux Feet earlier. She played an important role in the whole emergence of the Black Power Blueprint. It continues to. Isoke put in $25. Virginia Wilson put in $30. Pete Yarashuk put in $50. Janice Kant put in $100. Uhuru Janice. Suchas put in $20. Uhuru Suchas. And last but not least, Ali Ayello, who is actually doing the math for us right now, is putting in $100. That means that we have raised $1,845. Just $155 to go, and then it becomes $4,000 the minute we get to that. We got to do it.
Oh, we got to do this.
Yes.
Can we do it?
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and put in.
How much short are we short, Jesse?
We are 155. Yes. I put in 20 earlier. I'm going to bring that up to 80. I'm going to put in another 60. So that would bring us to 95, I think.
$95. Come on, comrades. We can.
Now we're in the double digits. So let's just keep whittling it down.
Five.
Okay, there you go. 5 from Jackson. So go ahead to blackpowerblueprint.org. We're going to continue hearing from Chairman Amalia Shatella and Deputy Chair Ona Zane. This has been an amazing, amazing interview. Definitely just what a crescendo for this whole incredible day that we've had on this telethon. So let's keep it going and keep contributing, keep donating. Let's get past $2,000 in this segment of the telethon tonight. Uhuru.
Share widely. Uhuru. So we wanted to ask one more question of you, Chairman Amalia Shatella, at least. You were an instrumental, and you have mentioned this, spoken about the significance of reparations, and you were an instrumental force in making reparations a household word through with the Tribunal on Reparations to African People in 1982, and so much since then that the African People's Socialist Party has accomplished. What is the party's understanding of reparations as a revolutionary demand? Could you speak to that?
That's an interesting question because when the party first started doing the reparations work, that is how we characterized it. We understood it. For one thing, the reparations demand has the ability to take the African population off of the defensive when it comes to the narrative, the common narrative in this country and much of the world, how it has been the beneficence of white people and white governments that has given welfare to African people that sometimes just gets too much and they become exhausted with all this giving that they do. And African people hear this on a regular basis and succumb too often to this fallacy. And it's a demoralizing thing for the community to think that, you know, if it were not for these white people who, you know, give us, and we've seen that. I mean, I don't know how many families have had to endure with secondhand clothing and food that was brought home by their parents, mothers, who worked in the kitchens of white people and what have you. This whole notion that somehow and then the whole issue of welfare, you know, because you got welfare cheats, and you've got welfare queens, according to Ronald Wilson Reagan, who was loved by Barack Hussein Obama, and other forces like that. So it's a demoralizing assault on African people. But when you start talking about reparations, then you come up explaining and demonstrating that it is not we Africans who've lived off the welfare of white people in white society. Rather, it has been white people and white society that's lived off the welfare of African people. It's a really powerful thing when Africans get that, when Africans hear that. It's a mobilizing kind of demand. So we struggled for that, and our objective was to get any force that we could in the African community to unite with the reparations demand. We didn't care if they were revolutionaries or what have you, just unite with this demand, because this demand, once it gets traction among the masses of the people, it goes beyond anything that opportunists might want to, do with it. So that in and of itself gives it a revolutionary character. But I think what enhances that is that the African people, and for the really very first time, has a revolutionary African working class organization that's leading this struggle, that can give better definition to this whole question of reparations beyond where Conyers, for example, who put forth the H.R. 41, I think it was, bill to study whether reparations is something that should come to us. And there were other people, I mean, that I worked with a long time ago, who did reparations work, and they had their own views and visions of what that should be. Well, we say that reparations is a revolutionary demand, that it is a part of the process of deconstructing a parasitic social system. And if one would really try to calculate the amount of value that is due based on reparations, it is incalculable.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, because there's nothing. I mean, the whole capitalist system itself owes its existence to slavery and colonialism. And every other thing that's happened with that. I mean, some people can point to some obvious things, like Steve Jobs, and what's the other guy with the big eyeglasses?
Bill Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates and what have you. And a relationship of coltan and Congo and other places to that kind of wealth. But it's more ubiquitous than that. I mean, there's every aspect of life and society that exists has its origin in that, as it today has its origin in a world economy that came through slavery and colonialism. So where do you start? You know, and that's what we're looking at. So our objective is to push the reparations demand and to build an actual capacity for African people to seize control of our own lives, our own resources, our own happiness, and to build a new world and part of a movement to build a whole new world that will destroy parasitism, destroy economic parasitism.
Yes.
And it means that the damage has to be paid for the African people, because there's no way that Africa and African people should be in a position of trying to play catch up. You know, even after say, if everybody say, okay, it's all over, you know, Africa is free, African people are free, and then what? You know, there's no catch up. I mean, because we've created value everywhere. We've created all over the United States, all over Europe. Everywhere you look, Africa has created value. That means that and that's why for us, the question of reparations is bigger than the United States. It's bigger than the question of slavery, etc. So anyway, for us, you know, that contributes to our recognition of the reparations demand being a revolutionary demand. But we want everybody to participate. Some people a bit gun-shy around us because, you know, they've created a narrative about reparations that sort of liquidates or eliminates the role that the party has played in making reparations what it is as a demand today. And so sometimes they kind of avoid us because they do stuff that they know is not revolutionary. In fact, you know, I've been told that, well, I'm not asking you because all these other persons, you know, who we went into the reparations demand, you know, these petty bourgeois middle-class people that that somehow our presence would be a problem for them uniting with it. But they don't have to avoid us. You know, they can say, look, we're going to win these people to reparations, you know, and, you know, we're still down with the reparations movement, whatever that means to them, because it's our responsibility to make the revolution, not theirs. What they do is when they push the reparations demand, it facilitates the revolutionary project to end a parasitic social system, a parasitic economy, and make it possible for human beings to live, you know, not at the expense of each other, what have you, and to repair the horrible, tremendous damage that has been done to Africa and to African people worldwide and to other peoples around the world. I mean, you know, we can't forget that, you know, we live in a world, we talked about the great disparity in Boston, for example, but I mean, the majority of the people on this earth do not have clean water, do not have electricity accessible to them. Sometimes I mean, how are you going to get a damn education when after the sun goes down, you can't study, you can't work or anything like that, and you can't even have decent production in terms of creating anything because there's no electricity, right? And so the reparations demand, it embraces the reality of Africa and African people totally. Yes. And that damage has to be repaired, and it has to be repaired for the peoples around the world. The concentration of resources belonging to the people of the world are here in Europe, increasingly going to places like China, you know, etc. But so we are ambitious, and one might even say that arrogant in our assumption that our project is to build a different world, a new world, and we find this intolerable. And we're not looking for any extraterrestrials, or we're not turning to any superstition to change this, because no extraterrestrial created this. And human beings did this, and human beings can undo it and build a different world. And that's what we're calling on people to do right now as we have this discussion. And all we're asking for really is what, 90? How much?
That was 10 minutes ago before people heard that powerful statement right there. So I just want to salute this panel. I'm sorry for the cliffhanger. I'm going to tell you how much we raised, but first I just want to say that was just so moving. I am going to study that statement that you just made, Chairman. I think we all need to study that in terms of putting out the total question of reparations. That was just extremely powerful, and just want to appreciate both of you for this amazing panel. And now I will tell you how we've been doing. So we want to give a shout out to Janice Kant because she put in another $100. The amazing.
Who said that Janice can't?
I knew you were gonna say that.
Very mistaken. The amazing Secretary General of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Allison Haney, put in $50. And Annie Sarachan, who had a very successful Facebook fundraiser, by the way, also put in $25. Uhuru to Annie. And by the way, there's a viewing party of this going on in Philly right now. So shout out to Philly. I know that's where a lot of this is coming from. And Ruby Gittleson, who's there in Philly, who we saw earlier tonight on the telethon, put in $25. Uhuru. And another person who used to be in Philly and met the movement there many years ago and now lives in Gainesville, Diane Tournay, put in $30. Uhuru, Diane. So Chairman and Deputy Chair and Jamie, that means tonight with the telethon so far, we have raised $2,140. That means $140 ago, $2,000 of that was matched, which means we have raised $4,140 for the Black Power Blueprint. Uhuru, that is so powerful. I just want to salute all of you who contributed, and we are not going to stop. We're doing a 24-hour telethon because the same way imperialism works round the clock to maintain the system built on the oppression of African people, we are committed to working around the clock to overturn that. And for reparations, reparations is a round-the-clock task. So we're going to keep this going. And we also understand that the Uhuru movement is huge. It's in many, many time zones. So sometimes we do these web shows at a certain time and half the people can't watch it. So now every single time zone will be able to participate by the time this is over. But I just want to salute this amazing party, the African People's Socialist Party, and Deputy Chair and Chairman. Anything you wanted to say before we close out this panel?
Go ahead.
Wow. I just want to say I just really appreciate being asked to be on this panel, and just to say that, like the chairman said earlier, we got our plenary coming up in February 1st through the 3rd. Yes. And our office, the Office of the Deputy Chair, will be giving an amazing presentation. Our theme is the point of no return. And all the comrades in my office are really preparing to take that theme on and really embody it within every department that we're located in the ODC. So, we know that Agitprop has something up their sleeve as well. So we want a little socialist competition going on within our movement. So this plenary is going to be off the charts. So if you have not registered for the plenary, please do so. Go to apspuhuru.org and register for the plenary, because it's going to be lit. It's going to be on. So yes, everybody, we want to see you here in St. Petersburg, Florida, February 1st through the 3rd. Uhuru.
Yes.
Uhuru.
Absolutely.
There's I had an uncle that I loved so much. He was a pretty tough guy. He was really physically incredible. But he used to say all the time that conversation is the cheapest commodity on the block. That everybody's got one, which is another way of dealing with the whole question of relationship between theory and practice.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Everybody's got a conversation,
Yes.
and that's how we've characterized the upcoming plenary for the 7th Congress, first plenary. That again is a call to vanguard up and the unity of theory and practice. And it's a really important kind of theme slogan, because we live during a time subsequent to the defeat of revolution in this country and around the world, where people bandy about terms like revolution and socialism, and they make it mean something that actually works against the interests of the people. So we want to define what that really is, based on what it meant when revolution was the main trend in the world and what it has to mean now. And African internationalism, we believe, has provided a major advance in the whole struggle for revolution, for revolutionary theory. It allows Africans and other colonized people to become the subjects of history, as opposed to being something that's been defined by Europe and European, no matter how well-meaning. I'm not one who wants to talk about Marx was a racist and stuff like that. I've seen books written on that, but that's not the point that I'm making, because I think Marx was somebody who spoke to, he was a genius. I mean, he was an extraordinary, brilliant man, but he spoke to reality based on where he was located in terms of time and place, and where he sat on the pedestal of the oppression and exploitation of African and other people. It's worth noting that even as he was writing Capital to define the inevitable rise of the industrial working class to overturning the industrial bourgeoisie and coming to power, he was funded by Frederick Engels, his dear friend, who got money from his father, who was a part of the bourgeoisie and who got much of his resources from cotton that was picked by African people, and so from that vantage point of he was able to write the book on Capital, and he could predict the victory of the industrial working class, but he didn't, that left us out. It was our responsibility. Now we have an opportunity to take that on. And we say vanguard up and uniting theory and practice. And if we follow the principles of the party, if we really fight for that throughout our structures, which is what it is we're going to do, then you can't be around unless you can do that. A conversation is not going to do it. You just can't hide in the recesses and corners of the work. Some Cretans have done that in the past, and they've misused principles, organizational principles and things like that. They've frightened and intimidated people who were neophytes, who were new to political life and were young, and who they had a political relationship with, and they isolated that relationship between them and these frightened people and stuff, and did some horrible stuff. Well, sometimes we refer to them as snakes, and people like that. And I'm reminded how when I was in South Africa on a long trip, and I had the driver stop at this house, this traditional round house, where I saw a woman working in the field. And I asked her, why the round house? Why do you have the round house? And she said, we have a round house because if a snake comes in, it always looks for a corner to hide in. And so when it comes in, all bad spirits, it comes in, it runs in the door, and it runs in the wall looking for a corner, and it runs in the door, and it comes back out, and it runs outside the door. So much of what the work we are doing now in terms of preparing for the plenary, we're constructing round houses. This is what it is. This is a construction of a round house, so snakes won't have any place to hide. There are no corners, no crevices, and what have you that you can hide in and assume that you'll be able to sink your venom, into people to disrupt this process. So I'm looking forward to the plenary, and I really want to just be so appreciative of all of you comrades who are doing this incredibly important work. We are making this revolution, and we are winning. And, I don't know of another time in history where we had this kind of process going on. I'm not just talking about reparations. I'm talking about a sector of the North American population that has united under the leadership of the African Revolution. And that's what's been a fundamental contradiction in the revolutionary process in this country and much of Europe, is that because of where Europeans are located, I'm not talking about some brain defect or moral deficit or something like that, but I'm talking about practically, where Europeans are located, just on the pedestal of the exploitation of everybody else in the world. That pedestal is a requirement for their ongoing success as it is. So every dream, every aspiration, what have you, and so that's why what you see is that when there's a disruption of this relationship that causes prices to go up because people are taking back their resources and it becomes more difficult for them to get things, you see it's a twin response, generally speaking, in the North American population or European population. One response, is from, those people who, are not going to, who've been deprived of what is traditionally and rightfully theirs, and so, they will attack the Wall Street group and all of this, and then another response based on the same thing. You see this twin phenomenon in every instance, what they call the right wing, both colonizers, the right wing, and so they, anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-this, because these are the forces upon whose resources everything rests as well. And so then there's African internationalism and this ability that we have here, and that you, comrades, I really can't overstate your significance as a vanguard, that can help the party lead white people out of this morass of madness that and total assault on logic that stems from this bogus relationship. Anyway, that's a process and a consequence of what Marx talked about as a superstructure resting on production based on slavery and colonialism. There are ideas that stems from that, Anyway, thank you, comrades. I know I can overtalk.
Thank you, Chairman. That was just incredible. I mean, it's tempting to extend this discussion another hour, but we won't do that. But we so much appreciate both of you for being on this program tonight, and just really, really appreciate it. It's been incredible to have you on. And I also want to shout out a couple other people who donated, because people just don't want to stop donating, and they shouldn't. So that's Renee and Kota in Philadelphia. Put in $100. That means that so far we've raised $2,180 towards the Black Power Blueprint, plus the $2,000 matching fund. So that is a tremendous victory. Let's give another round of applause for Deputy Chair Onizime Satella and Chairman Omari Satella. So we're actually going to close out this stream, and we will be coming back in just a couple of minutes from St. Louis, because like we said, this is nonstop. So we're coming back from St. Louis. There's going to be an incredible program in St. Louis. There's going to be a spoken word poetry performance, I believe, coming up. Wow. So we got quite a bit ahead of us tonight. And I know Jamie's sticking around, so we'll be seeing more of him later. But we want to thank everybody and close out by saying, Vanguard up!
Vanguard up!
Unity through
Reparations!
Uhuru!
Uhuru!